Come on your knee. Ha ha.
Оп. Ой.
Friends, hello everyone. Prepared the workpiece and today we will make something amazing from this giant blank blank. Had technology for a long time. Manufacturing of all kinds of impellers and impellers on a lathe. And now he seems to have adjusted the lathe and we can try. For a start, the very essence of the technical process. Any screw cutting lathe can cut all kinds of threads. But usually the thread pitch is small. Although my lathe, as it is written here, can slice up to 128 steps. This is a pretty giant step, I can tell you. But as I have not tried to tune here with these levers, I couldn't do more than 25 millimeters. And making an impeller takes a big step. And what are we doing? We climb into the lathe's guitar. We climb to where the gears are located. This is the same gear ratio, which specifies the feed or thread pitch. I've only swapped 2 gears here. I put the little gear that stood here down. And I threw the big gear from here over here. And now my thread pitch is up to 150 millimeters. But one step is not enough here. We'll have to do some sophistication and do, let's say, thread for many calls. Just a very huge step and a specific profile. I'll try to start with 3-blade impeller. Let's see if we can get to the multi-blade impellers. But it will be in the next videos, most likely. So, let's go. And in the process we will deal with technology. Now the magic begins. We put this handle in the 4th position. Maximum position. Here we will not put in the maximum position, because a step of 150 millimeters is a lot. Here we will put it in 2. And here we need to do 1 in 8. So that the revolutions are small, and the feed is large. The feed will remain the same, to be more precise. And the turnover is 8 times less. As a result, the cutter stroke will be longer. Something like this it all looks like and now watch what happens. I turn on the lathe. The lathe chuck turns slowly. And the lead screw just spinning at a frantic speed. He even starts throwing butter on the wall. Therefore, it is necessary to make the revolutions very small and even at these RPM, there will be a very high speed. In general, you can start cutting. First, I want to make a markup for 3 beams. For this I do not have cunning mathematical calculations. Made conclusions about how many revolutions you need to turn. I guess I'll paint over the stripes with some paint, so as not to be mistaken later. The magic begins. Sag 115 mm. It turns out that you need to make passes along 38-33 mm. I forgot to adjust the small sled and now, as it were, it does not take very well here. Oh, I feel it will be a long business. But I am ready to win. The first approaches are done. It can be seen that a certain amount of metal is already missing. Friends, of course, it turned out that the cutter is not suitable. You need to make a beveled cutter like this at an angle, so that the cutter can also be angled and cut, because this cutter overwrites and even that's 2.5 millimeters deep on each side. That is for a diameter of 5 millimeters. In general, it is already inaccessible to him. Because here I can't choose normally. And this is how you need to sharpen until blue in the face. I made a new cutter. More so flat. In 3 passes, it turns out to make 1 track. Plus I made a very large bevel here, so that it would fit at an angle. But still I don't know, friends. How much will I have to do this? It feels like I will be making this impeller for 5 to 6 days. This is what I took on the project. But it turns out just beauty. If I am not mistaken, for all these 6 days, never once and will make a quality item, it will be a success. I have already got used to the second pass more or less, and business went much faster. It is worth taking a little more time for the cutter and customize it. In principle, while the cutter cuts, I rub it roughly. Later, when we clean up the detail, friends, then it will of course need to be finalized. The work is semi-manual, but I have already adapted. This is what we have after the second pass. A certain auger is already beginning to take shape. Here I made the thickening because it is easier to cut this way. Then I will work with a finishing cutter. Of course, it will be necessary to make a cutter, make it. I think everything will work out. If, again, I am not mistaken anywhere. So, I continue on. I will go deeper with a cutter 10 mm in diameter. That is, he removed 20 mm of metal. It turns out such a beautiful shavings. Finished roughing. Now I need a day to rest and restore moral strength. Then I will continue finishing. At the moment, just a tremendous amount of work has been done. Notice how the pitch of the screw changes the angle at different diameters. See, here he is like this. And at the bottom, where he already touches the shaft, so to speak the middle part, he is from a different angle. The result is an ideal propeller pitch. This is very cool and very cool. And on such simple technologies, probably, this whole screw industry, probably only with the difference that they did either with a milling cutter, or somehow, it's actually an auger. But since I am going to profile it, I take it upon myself to call it an impeller, because the impeller looks about the same, but his middle part is conical. I thought about it and decided to make the outer part of the conical shape. That is, in principle, what's the difference? Isn't that right, guys? A bit of hypnosis. It rotates. I've been doing this for several weeks now. It just gets very nervous very quickly and I am finishing work. Friends, I have already reached the final passages. Already one side has been completely processed. There are 2 more sides left to process. And on the back and in the center, there is still a lot of work. Probably a few weeks of work. You will probably think that and you're done. But it is not so. Moreover, metal removal here will now be unprecedented hitherto. About 8 centimeters in diameter will be removed. Now, in a few seconds, we'll get to that. In the meantime, I will continue to build up my wheats. And now what I was talking about. We observe how it cuts with the entire width of the incisor. Not fast, of course. Feed 0.05 millimeters. But it cuts. Thus, I bring it to size so that it is perfectly accurate. Has passed to the final stage. I select the bottom for details. I am doing some kind of rounding. This is how the process goes, friends. My hands were already fully automated. I don't make unnecessary movements, it seems to me. This will be a big plus for me, a big hit. When I cut threads into many runs and simple. I am already working in automatic mode. As you can imagine, no mistakes can be made here. I put a diamond cutter. I am still thinking about whether to do it on a cone. That is, this way it will better accelerate. Liquid or gas, which will flow into the world of the scapular space. I haven't decided yet. If you make a conical one, it will be more difficult to make the body later. But it will be possible to adjust the gap. I control the diameter using a plug gauge. Here one diameter is slightly smaller, and the other is slightly larger. So that you can fit into a specific fit. Landing here is 18 mm A4. Let's see how it looks. This part, which is more than 5 acres, 0.05 mm, does not come in approximately. This part comes in. Calmly, you see how. Piston. It looks like a part from a rocket engine. From the pump unit. It seems to me that such things were done there in the same way on lathes. What a detail came out from under the cutter. Looks very tough. Now I'll wipe it off and discuss this matter. It took me 3 weeks to make this thing. I don't know how many hours. Probably 20 to 30 hours. That is, naturally, not all 3 weeks I did not leave the machine. I took breaks, because my psyche cannot stand to do monotonous work. Metal removal was approximately 0.1 mm at every aisle. Now you count how many passages there were to select at least so much metal in one well. It seems to me that there are hundreds, maybe thousands. But it turned out, friends. I set myself a goal and everything worked out. Now I have one more grandiose goal, is to try to make a multi-blade impeller. That is, there are 3 blades here. If I cut it off like this, here somewhere I cut it off, it would look like a 3-blade propeller. That is, as for a boat motor, there would be such blades. Here you can round off all this by hand. This detail just came out from under the cutter. I made a conical one so that I could disperse the liquid. Increase speed. Enter at a lower speed, exit at a higher speed. And plus you can still. Tapering nozzle. So what are the nuances here? There are only 2 of them. When we make a pass. Here on this side, resting the cutter here. The cutter looks like this. The cutter here has no angle. There is no rise here and there is actually no corner here. That is, there is an angle of 90 degrees. You could even make an obtuse angle. Because you see for yourself. Under the slope goes. So, that is, there is such a triangular gap and one could even make a more obtuse angle. Nothing with this chisel bites. Everything is going fine, because the screw is pulling, as it were, in this direction. Here we have an emphasis and the part cannot pull the cutter over itself. But here on the opposite side, the situation is radically different. I broke twice. Here is such a powerful cutter from a quick cut. I broke it once. Then I TIG welded it. I started cutting and unknowingly broke it again. Ignorance is that when we make a passage, leaning on this wall, then just here there is a backlash and if we have some kind of corner, see what happens. The cutter is pulled over the part. So I blunt this corner and made it so that it was not too tight. Went 90 degrees on this inclined surface. And if you do, how to show, let's say such an angle, like this, then, accordingly, the cutter is stuck in and, since the part is spinning, it pulls the cutter over itself and there is a snacking action and breaking off a very powerful cutter. There are no other nuances. Any turner who came across instantly figure out what's what. If he turner, of course you need such a detail. I'll tell you that. Impeller. A very expensive thing for water cannons. Somehow I was even offered to do such a thing for a lot of money. Naturally for a lesser amount, as I understand it, what it costs. I would never agree to do them a second time. Because, friends, you can really become a psycho. But here is the perfect screw. This detail can even be screwed into a solid body. Not to mention screwing it into water or air. See how the step is here? There is a smaller angle, and there in the middle. The angle is much larger. Naturally, moving towards the center, he straightens up. Cool thing, friends. That's all for me. Who is interested and who wants to see what will happen with this impeller next? I don't know when it will be. Subscribe to the channel. Support by liking, support by viewing. That's all for me. Goodbye everyone, see you soon.